Welcome to Stu's Woodshed. This is my first attempt at a video documenting one of the projects I'm working on. We're going to be working on a chopping board or a cutting board using end grain. I've got a whole bunch of little yew logs which I've been saving up for a while now. Let me find one and show you. Got a few hundred of these which have been chopped off of a yew tree in the garden whilst trimming it, and I really like the end grain. It gets this nice two-tone pattern. You can't really see it on the rough end, but when it's cut it's quite nice. The heartwood and the sapwood and the yew gives that nice two-tone finish. So I had this idea of chopping them down to little lengths, cutting them square, and then building up a whole end grain chopping block. It's going to be an awful lot of cutting little squares of wood, lots of problems to solve along the way. I'm not quite sure how we're going to get them all to line up. I don't have a thicknesser here, which is a bit tricky, but we do have a circular saw, so that will help. So yeah, let's see how we get on. Let's try and make a video of it. Hey. Here's some of the logs from the yew tree that I was talking about. They've been drying nicely for a couple of years, so it should all be really good for now. How do we start? We've got lots of these little lengths. I think the first challenge is going to be how to hold it on the saw bench, on the circular saw bench, so it sits nice and flat. So I think what we'll do is try and plane a little bit off the bottom, just to give ourselves a flat surface to work on. So we whack it in there. Here, grab hold of our planer, bit of space, and okay, good. Now we've got a nice flat bottom. We can rest that on the saw bench, and it should stop it from rocking around too much. Only a couple of hundred more to go. So I think what we're going to do is square up the end, then place it against our backrest here, chopping down the sides each time till we've got a square, and then chop it up and get 2 or 3 or 4 individual squares out of each piece. So some time ago I made myself a sliding trolley thing for the circular saw, which makes this kind of chopping an awful lot easier, a lot safer. I don't know about you, but I'm terrified of these things. They scare the willies out of me, so I'm always a bit paranoid. Holding onto this with this thumb guard here will make this job a lot easier. Gives you a lot more control, makes it much steadier. So you know me, it's all about safety. I don't have the luxury of an induction motor circular saw, so this thing is bloody loud. But I do have some noise cancelling earphones which do the job pretty well for cutting out a bit of the noise. I'll stick these in. Okay. Safety visor. Protect our face for flying chips. A bit of ventilation. Okay, here we go. Lock. So, 2 more of my end blocks. You can see the two-tone grain there coming through nicely. So Only a couple of 100 more of these to go. There's a pile of offcuts that we're slowly accumulating. This will be good firewood, nice and dry. So we've been at this for a while now. I've got a few probably coming on for 100 blocks cut up now. I'm just roughly laying them up, give my sense of how they line up nicely. I've decided that some of the thicker rows we'll put in little double pairs every now and again to make it a bit more interesting. I think we're going to have to glue these up as individual rows, then square them up on the saw, and then glue them all together as a block. I think that's probably going to be the best way. Maybe once I've got the individual rows, I'll flip them over on their side and square up the edges all round. Again, lack of a thickness there is a bit of a challenge, but we'll see how we get on. Some of these are some really nice patterns going on, really little incoming branches, little doubles and pairs. I really like the way they're looking already. Once they've got some oil on them, they should look really nice. Some of the blocks are coming out with a bit of this sort of tear out on them. I don't know if you can see it, if I can get it in focus. There you go, yeah. So I'm just sanding these down, removing a bit of this before we glue them up. Great patterns on some of these. Get it in focus. Yeah, some nice bits of wood. You can see the two-tone really well. The heart and the sapwood and the yew. So as you can see, I've laid out the blocks, roughly the shape of the board, just to sort of get the positionings of the rows and the spacing kind of nice. Might be some final adjustment later on, but we'll see. Each one's going to be about 26 centimeters by 40 something. I think we're going for as close to sort of golden ratio chopping board as I can, which I think is about 1.62 to 1. So we'll see how that looks. So I'm going to start gluing up on our sash clamps. The great gluing up. I have my next row here ready, lined up, fairly cleaned up of any tearing, kind of alternating the direction of the knots in the wood to give it a nice pattern. I think we're ready to start gluing. So I've protected my sash clamp here with a bit of newspaper. Got me Tight Bond 3 Ultimate Wood Glue. It's been around for a few years this, but hopefully it's still good. So we'll lay each block over on its side so that we remember the pattern. We'll start gluing up. Here we've got one of the blocks thoroughly glued up. Even the little sideways pairs of blocks cramping on them to keep them together. So we glued up some of the first rows overnight. You can see them here in the sash clamps. Looking rather good. We should take these out and see what we've got. So here we go. First row. It's a bit like one of the kids' unboxing videos, this. Kind of the moment of truth as you reveal what it is you managed to make. Clamping. Put a newspaper to stop it glue from going all over the sash clamp. We have our first row. Looking good. Fairly smooth on that edge, fairly smooth on the bottom edge. Nice little doubles going on to make it a bit more interesting on the bigger block rows. And then obviously all this wobbly edge is going to need squaring up again on the circular saw. And we'll square up again the top face and the bottom face. hopefully we'll get away without too much planing and just a good sanding. Save a lot of time and effort. Okay, so first 1, 2, 3 rows done. Only probably another 10, 12 to go. Okay, after a couple of days of gluing up, we've finally got all of our individual rows glued together nicely, and they're looking pretty good. Now we have to square them off and then glue the whole lot together. I think we're going to need to glue on some sort of scrap wood onto either end and either side, so that as we're sanding, planing, etc., we don't get any tear out on the edges. So let's see if we can square these up. Time to start squaring up our individual rows. I think we'll use the flattest edge to start with, and then square up each side, and then eventually get all the thicknesses down to the same size, whatever the minimum sort of block thickness is of all of our various blocks. So a bit more circular saw fun. Here we go. Three edges squared up, 1, 2, 3. Once we've done them all, I think we'll lay them up, measure the height of the narrowest block, and then bring them all down to that height. And then we should be able to start gluing up our rows. Pretty good. To ensure all the blocks come out the same thickness, I've rigged up a set square on my saw bench here. Should hopefully help make sure that there's a bit less sanding to do. We are all squared up on the circular saw. Everything's sides are all nice and parallel. A couple of the ones that have gone a bit wobbly we've straightened up. And we are just about ready for the great glue up. So here we go. final gluing up. After this, just squaring up the sides, sanding, and we should be done. Finally, I've lots on sanding. It's time to square up the board. Take these rough ragged edges off. Here we go. Oh, nice. Now that we've finished sanding, which did take a while, I'm going to put a bit of a chamfer on the edges just to help with the wear as it's being used and to sort of soften up the edges, make it a bit more tactile. Being very careful to not get any breakout. All chamfered and sanded. Now we're just on to signing and dating, and then a bit of oil, and we're going to be done. Good. Good look at that. Okay, last step. A bit of oil, a bit of mineral oil to protect the surface, stop anything soaking into it.
Everything with
Okay, so the oil's been soaking into the board all night. Brought the grain out absolutely beautifully. As you can see, it's covered in beautiful little grain loggy swirls. Give you a close up so you can see some detail. It's come out rather nice. Looking good. Might be hanging on to this one. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this video as much as I've enjoyed making this board. It inspires you to make your own. Cat wants feeding. Come on, cat. Let's feed you. Get out.